For weeks now, I've been wanting to do a video on tariffs because I know people hear it all the time in the news. Tariff this, tariff that, reciprocal tariffs. And I know most people don't know what it really is. So I figure, let me just shed some more light on what it is exactly. A tariff is like a duty or a tax, if you will, put on a product that, for example, before it enters the country, those tariffs get placed on it. So what is the purpose of tariffs, since we've been hearing it so much? There's several reasons, I should say. Number one, let's say all the products. So every country want to get their products sold in the US. We have a lot of spending power, etc. People in America want access to everything. And so there's a great market. All those products coming in potentially can get taxed, and is a good way for the government to generate money. So that's one thing. Another thing is you impose tariffs on other countries / companies in order to potentially protect an industry. Here's an example. America produces a lot of apples, especially in the state of New York, right? Then you have India. If we wanted to export our apples into India, it would be a 70% tariff on said apples. Now, India is a market where a lot of people, but a lot of people are at or around the poverty level, right? So number one, they wouldn't even be able to afford that, especially, with a 70% tax on it. Because once things get taxed by the company, that cost carry on to the customer. So essentially, you make it in a way where the average citizen can't get that product, and so it won't sell there. So you've protected that industry. So they'll just be getting Indian apples or from another country, maybe that's at lower tariff, for example. Here's another example of, since we're using India. We have Harley Davidson motorcycle. It's a well-known American motorcycle brand. If we wanted to export that into India, there's 100% tariff. So if that motorcycle costs $60,000 here, it'll be $120 in India. There's a lot of people, the majority of people in India can't even afford a $60,000 one or $30,000 one. Now we're talking $120. So what that leaves is a small, tiny percentage of the population that can afford that motorcycle. And when they could do that, all these things become a status symbol, right? But that's cool, because as long as the majority can't afford it, once again, it'll keep the Indian motorcycle industry alive. Because if it's the other way, where how China has done for decades, where they're able to produce things for so cheap, they're like I think of it as the world's factory, right? So everything made in China for decades. So they're able to produce things so cheaply, and then companies are able to buy so cheap, and customers will get cheap products. We all know how that works. So what that has created was companies started to leave, because why make a product expensive here when we could make it abroad in China? What that's done all around America, there's closed factories everywhere. They're not open. They're no longer in business. And so it ruined a lot of industries, and it's less jobs because of it. That's what I'm saying. Countries want to protect their industries. When people work, they pay taxes. When people work, they're not on the system. When people work, they steal less, etc., etc. Working is a good thing. So once again, like I said, it's a way for the government to generate money. Is the way to protect industries. I gave you an example of how not protecting an industry as well, and stuff going to China, it just ruined complete industries here. Let me switch it up a little bit too in regards to what we're hearing with Trump, because we're often hearing he's increasing tariffs over here and over there. What he's trying to do, what I believe, is you see how, for example, India's charging us 70% for our apples. We are not charging them 70%. So that's when it becomes, okay, we want you to pay the tariff. We want it to be equal. And essentially, when you hear about these increases, it's us wanting it to kind of level out to, we'll charge you what you charge us, essentially. So there's a bit of politics in it, but there's going to be a correction at some point where things are balanced. In the immediate time, it's a little scary, because when there's instability, things are scary, right? Because you don't know what's the outcome. You have what you hope, but you don't know what's the final outcome. Initially, people will feel it because prices will rock a little bit. But I think, so for example, if we think about cars that we import in the States. We import them, there's a tariff on it, it's going to be higher. And what the thing is, the cost goes to the customer. If it's higher for the company to bring it in the country, the cost trickles down to the buyer. What can happen is people might not buy new cars right now. They might buy used cars instead of the high price. So that's a way to get around it too. While there's a little instability right now, go with the used car market. That's what happened during COVID. Automakers, building materials, etc., they became so scarce, right? And so used homes, used cars, they went up, right? It was to the point where people were paying way over asking, bidding wars to get used homes. The new homes, the builders couldn't get certain products for months on end. That's what's going on right now with the tariff situation. So when you hear it on the news, it'll give you a better idea of what's going on. Other countries are really charging us more than we're charging them. Now, it's up to you to decide, is that fair? Some people might say this is a big, rich country. We should be paying more, etc. So I guess you get to figure that out. But always remember, if you drive through this country, there's a lot of empty factories, a lot of towns that were thriving 50 years ago, 40 years ago, and there's no life there because things at some point went abroad. And so that's another element I'll just wrap up with. Trump is saying, okay, if you bring your company back to the U.S., you won't even have to worry about the tariff. So it's just set up shop here, provide jobs, and you won't even have to worry about the tariff. So that's just something to think about. Everything we've been hearing, and just put a little context to it. Let me know what you think about it down below. Let me know what you think is going to be the outcome after all said and done. Until next time, Dave the Ring, No Frontier, over and out. Peace.